Minister, back to my old hobby horse, means testing. Now, there are a cohort of people in this country who are so disabled from birth or from a very early age that they will never be able to get employment or make social welfare contributions. And the only social welfare payment open to them is the disability allowance. Now, I believe the way that income and capital or savings are assessed against these people are unfair, and I'd be interested to hear what you intend to do to reform this system.
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy, for raising this matter. The system of social assistance supports provides payments based on an income need. This means test plays a critical role in determining whether or not an income need arises as a consequence of a particular contingency such as disability, unemployment or caring. This ensures that the recipient has a verifiable income need and that resources are targeted to those who need them most. This means test takes account of the income of a person or couple has in terms of cash, property and other than the family home and capital. Disability allowance is unique in the social welfare system as the first 50,000 of capital, that is savings, shares or property, is fully disregarded in the capital means test. This compares to 20,000 for most other social assistance schemes. After the first 50,000 of capital is disregarded, the next 10,000 is assessed at €1 per thousand, the next 10,000 is assessed at €2 per thousand, with the remainder assessed at €4 per thousand. The disregard results in approximately 98% of people on disability with capital means having no capital actually assessed as means. People receiving disability allowance may also be eligible for secondary benefits such as free travel, fuel allowance, the household benefits package, the living alone allowance and the telephone support allowance. In addition, disability allowance recipients may also work and earn up to €120 per week without their payment being affected. Any proposals to change the capital means assessment for disability allowance would have to be considered in the overall budgetary context.
Deputy.
Minister, let's go back to the cohort of people that I spoke about, who are so disabled that this talk in the answer of getting employment just does not arise. Now, I've come across cases where, for example, a parent dies and leaves in a will that to divide amongst their children, say €100,000 to a disabled child, a disabled adult child who has been disabled since birth. In that case, the disability allowance payment drops from €203 per week to €53. If they leave, for example, €110,000, it reduces the payment to €13 a week. And if they left, and this happens where parents die and, for example, the family home is sold, if they left €120,000, then the person with disability would be entitled to no disability allowance. Now, I think we have to remember that these thresholds I'm talking about are way beneath the inheritance tax threshold. Minister, for this very vulnerable group where parents make a huge effort to leave them something, are you willing to look at it again?
Thanks,
I'm talking about people who have always been disabled and never have had an opportunity and never will of making a social contribution in terms of getting an invalidity pension.
Okay.
Yeah, Minister. Sorry, I was signalling to another deputy. Apologies.
Thank you, Deputy. I hear what you're saying, and there are disregards there, as I've pointed out. There's 50,000. So the first 50,000 of the 100,000 is disregarded, and obviously the next amount is done on a sliding scale. There are, in terms of the disability allowance, it covers a wide range of people who are on it, and this is something that obviously I would have to speak to my officials about, and I take the point you're making, Deputy, but it is something that it would need certainly a fairly in-depth analysis as to what we could do in this particular space.
Thanks, Minister.
I'll give you another example, and this is a real live example, where a parent scrimped and saved throughout their life, and they wanted to make an extra provision for their disabled offspring, and they bought a pension of €100 a week, and they gave it to the adult offspring that they had. In this case, it reduced the disability allowance by €100 per week, which meant that the person's money wound up saving the state money but doing nothing for their own child. Now, maybe, Minister, when we meet, we could also discuss these cases. These are not hypothetical. These are real cases you come across in real life from families where there might have been a middle-class income and where they really want to provide for the disabled children, but they find all the time that the more they do, the more it's taken away by the other hand by the state.
Thanks, Deputy.
Thank you, Deputy. And yes, I'm happy to talk to you about this particular issue. You know, I take the point, and there's always going to be cases, and I think it's important that we look at the system we have to make sure that we're not leaving anybody out or causing difficulties for people. Cathaoirleach, I was wondering, would you mind terribly, with the permission of Deputy Carol O'Neill, Jennifer Carol O'Neill, if I made just a short statement to the House?
This is in relation to back
well,
to school.
It's just actually in relation to the pandemic unemployment payment.
Okay.
It's sort of following on from yesterday evening. Thank you very much. As you know, the pandemic unemployment payment was introduced to support people who lost their jobs overnight as a result of COVID-19. It was a solidarity payment to protect people's income at a time of national crisis, and I strongly believe that any person who breached that solidarity by claiming a payment that they were not entitled to because they were no longer living in the country should have their payment stopped. Of the 2,500 PUP claims that have been stopped since March, the vast majority of these, over 90%, relate to people who were permanently leaving the country. I have listened to the concerns expressed in recent days in relation to people whose payment was stopped due to the fact that they were travelling abroad on a holiday. And I know that there are cases where people may have travelled abroad and genuinely not been aware of the travel guidance or criteria which applied to PUP. And indeed, Cathaoirleach, you raised that yourself yesterday evening. And I accept that my department could have communicated more effectively on this issue. For that reason, I have directed the department to review all cases to date where people who went on holiday and had their payments stopped. Since the regulations relating to job seekers were signed on the 10th of July, the government's travel advice has changed with the publication of the Green List last week. On that basis, and in line with the government's travel advice, I have now asked my officials to amend the regulations so that people on job seekers who wish to travel to any of the countries on the Green List can do so and continue to receive their payment. For countries that are not on the Green List, persons can travel for essential reasons only. So, for example, if you're going to a non-Green List country, it must be for essential reasons such as a bereavement or for health reasons. If you inform your Intrio office in advance, your payment will not be impacted. The pandemic unemployment payment was established on an emergency ad hoc basis under the Social Welfare Act and was paid out as an exceptional needs payment. My officials advised me that under this scheme there was no provision to receive a payment while out of the country under any circumstances. As I am currently bringing legislation through the Oireachtas to put PUP on a statutory basis, I intend to sign regulations that will bring the PUP payment in line with job seekers. That will mean persons on PUP can travel to green list countries and their payment will not be impacted. As with job seekers, persons travelling to countries outside the green list can only do so for essential reasons. The Government is committed to protecting people, and that is why we have extended PUP till next April, and we will continue to keep all regulations under review in line with the Government travel and public health advice. So, Guramahi got here, look.